Dread Templar was a pleasant surprise when I reviewed the early access version a little over a year ago. Developed by T19 Games and published by Fulqrum, formerly 1C Entertainment, Templar was just a fun, all-around solid shooter with tight, lightning-fast mechanics and a heavy metal style that had me headbanging in between the explosions. But what really grabbed my attention was its upgrade system that promised players a good amount of depth in customizing their playstyle. Overall, it was an ideal start to early access. Now, after several content updates and plenty of tweaking, Dread Templar has finally crossed the finish line into a 1.0 release. Today, I will be lending my thoughts on this kinetic, necrotic shooter to let you know if it deserves a spot on your hard drive. What I will say now is that if you were already a fan of this game, then you'll have little to dread in this review. For those that have been enjoying Dread Templar's early access version, I can imagine the first question on their mind is, what's been added and changed for the final release? And I'm pleased to say, quite a bit. A quick note, some of this has been introduced in previous updates, but as I didn't touch on them in my early access review, I want to make note of them here. New weapons and enemies have been added, as well as new silver and gold runes, but the highlight, of course, are the 2 new episodes, bringing the total to 5, each featuring at least 5 levels with some secret ones in there to uncover. A nice surprise is that some of the early levels, particularly in Episode 1, have been tweaked, with their layout streamlined and many of the weapon pickups, save crystals, and upgrade statues moved about. They're positive changes, making for a smoother flow and keeping the main features of the level, such as the arenas and puzzle elements, intact. Replay value is exceptionally high. There's a wide swath of difficulties with New Game Plus options, and in the tradition of old-school shooters, the hardest difficulty is hidden somewhere in the game. Also giving you a little more bang for your buck is the Guardian mode, a wave-based survival mode where you're tasked with protecting a crystal at the center of the arena. Defeating enemies earns you money, which can be used to buy weapons, ammo, and backup. It should also be noted that any upgrades you find in the main campaign are carried over into this mode. It's a fun time and lets you enjoy the full spectrum of Dread Templar's combat. Last, the 1.0 version also features the full narrative, which finally sheds some light on our dark lead character.
Through the cracks in the walls, I saw several terrifying monsters break the door down and rush in. He batted their fangs and claws away using his trusty gun as he dashed outside.
Dread Templar's story revolves around our titular character journeying through fantastical and dangerous realms to free himself from a curse that has haunted his family. Unsurprisingly, Templar's story is vague and leaves much to player interpretation, but in between levels we are treated to cutscenes recounting a traumatic experience from the Templar's childhood that set him on his blood-drenched course. While the voice acting in these scenes is a little on the cheesy side, they're well written in a moody, pulpy style and feature some great artwork. The story is definitely over the top, but it's refreshing that the narrative aspects are taken seriously and not just there to provide a setting and a means for juvenile jokes. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but one too many of these retro shooters follow that trend. In all, the narrative, while brief, was enough to keep me interested and gave me enough motivation to help the Templar fulfill his revenge. Dread Templar's visuals present a gothic horror aesthetic, rendered in a convincingly old-school style, with crunchy pixelated textures and lots of sharp polygons, bringing me right back to the games of my youth. The first episode starts things off right, introducing players to the game's macabre yet vibrant gothic horror visuals. A series of ancient overgrown crypts populated with rusty cages, torture chambers, insect nests, and the faint red glow of hell furnaces, all covered in cobwebs and lit by torch. It's wonderfully detailed and drips Lovecraftian charm. What's cool though is that while the horror sensibilities remain throughout the game, Dread Templar's episodes go much broader with their visual themes. Introducing players to the haunted seas where ghost pirates roam, elegant clockwork mansions floating in the void, and the warm desert sands of a forgotten ancient city. The experience began to feel less Quake and more action anime in its stylings, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Devil May Cry and Castlevania were major influences here, as many of these maps have some of the visual DNA of those franchises, and it's refreshing to see those sensibilities brought into a shooter of this type. My big complaint with the visuals, and really my biggest complaint of the game, is that the way some of these levels looked just didn't gel with me. It comes down to the color choices. In my early access review, I was critical of the hell maps in episode 2, and I'm still critical of them here. While I appreciate the splashes of cosmic coloring, like the green skies, the consistent purple tones made this episode feel visually monotonous compared to the first. But the disappointment was felt more in the Ghost Pirate maps of episode 3, which is just a bunch of gray tones ranging from light to dark. I can totally see what the dev was going for, trying to make these maps feel cold, dead, and haunted, and I love the intention, but the final result just feels stale to me, and I think it hurts the readability of some of these levels. In the first level of episode 2, Dead Sails, it actually took me a bit to realize the level had a ghost ship entombed within a cave. The dark coloring of the ship just ended up blending in with the gray walls. And yeah, in my opinion, it detracts from what is otherwise a really cool concept for a level. Fortunately, the later levels of episode 3 are far more visually vibrant, and I was happy with how the game looked past that point, with maybe the final episode feeling a little sparse in detail compared to the earlier ones. The music, however, is amazing. Composed by John S. Weekly, aka Primeval, who was also responsible for the soundtracks for Vomitorium and Doombringer, Dread Templar's music is a heavy metal symphony of epic proportions, a soundscape that strives to match the over-the-top ultraviolence and then some. It's the type of music that brings to mind a bloodthirsty warrior fighting an army of demons, or helicopter blades slicing through a mob of zombies during a desperate escape, or when the very fires of hell are bursting from the earth during the end days. You know, music that sounds like this. But the devilish thunder licks is not what makes me love this heavy metal soundtrack. No, it's the variety of other vastly different musical types mixed with it. Sounds many would assume would come off as silly when matched with power chords. Yeah, many of these tracks are backed by choir, and we get some techno drops in there too, particularly in episode 1. But in later episodes, the guitar shredding is complemented by salty, fiddle-played sea shanties and Irish jigs. And at first, it kinda cracked me up. I was like, what is this? But before I knew it, I was jumping onto YouTube looking up the OST because I could not get these songs out of my head. It's the perfect sort of soundtrack for this game. It fuels the action, but more importantly, it plays a huge part in defining its personality. While I may have complaints of how some of these levels look, in terms of the actual level design, there's little to complain about. Maps are efficiently constructed and feature a good, fun, speedy flow with lots of surprises around every corner. Clever shortcuts make backtracking pretty much non-existent, and these levels were absolutely littered with secrets. We'll touch on those later. Combat encounters range from tight corridor splats to overwhelming bullet hell battlefields, and there's a clear effort on the developer's part to make every combat encounter feel as fresh as possible, whether it be by taking advantage of a level's unique geometry or introducing some sort of device. And of course, ever-varying monster combinations helps this too. An impressive touch is that just about every level features a hidden, optional side area, which aren't too hard to find, although some take a little more effort than others. Side areas consist of either fierce combat challenges, platforming obstacle courses, or both, and for the most part strive to give the player a unique challenge every time, handsomely rewarding those who complete them. I can't say I loved all the side areas, a few did get on my nerves, one involving a minecart comes to mind, but majority of them were enjoyable, and the fact that these are featured in most of the levels is above and beyond. Dread Templar does feature a fixed save point system, represented by these Final Fantasy look and save crystals. Now, before some of you write this game off entirely for this feature, you should know that the save crystals are plentiful and well placed in each level, and this game features autosave checkpoints which do keep the irritation at bay. It does beg the question why this game just doesn't have manual saves and quick saves since the fixed system is so forgiving, but I don't feel like making that rant right now, and this game doesn't really deserve it. But what is annoying is that you're still vulnerable vulnerable to enemy attack while saving, which is one thing when you try to save in the midst of a big battle, but is another thing entirely when a single enemy pops up out of nowhere and spoils your fun. This is right at the beginning of a level. Like, come on. Of course, to really enjoy the strong level design, you have to have strong gameplay, and I'm happy to say Dread Templar checked all of my boxes in that category. In terms of mechanics, movement is lightning fast and the shooting feels punchy and powerful, made all the more visceral with bassy sound effects, snappy firing animations, and slight camera shakes. It's the type of shooting that brings an expectation of lots of blood splatter and jibs, and oh boy does this game deliver. The mechanics are hard-hitting, but also make for a smooth combat flow, and even in the most crowded of battlefields, the player will feel little friction, which is always ideal. Dread Templar is more technical than your average arena FPS, encouraging players to always be quick-swapping between their weapons and using devastating combos, like stopping enemies with the electrifying trap launcher and leaving the rest to the trusty double barrel. Your arsenal is well-rounded and surprisingly vast, with most of the player's weapon slots holding 2 implements of a similar type. So the 2 key holds the dual pistols and the dual SMGs, whereas the 3 key holds the pump-action shotgun and the super shotgun. In fact, the right click on the mouse is solely dedicated to swapping between weapons in the same slot, and yes, there are earned abilities that incentivize this. More on those later. Getting kills fills your bullet time meter at the top of the screen, which, yes, allows you to enter a bullet time state and get the upper hand in glorious, desaturated slow-mo. A very familiar state of being, but a welcome one in this game. Rounding out your firepower are a handful of cooldown abilities that are essential to combat. There is a dash, which is aggressive, highly controllable, and very responsive, to the point that it becomes instinct. Honestly, it's a dash that other FPS developers should emulate. Your melee weapons, dual katanas, can be combined into a javelin that can punctuate a skirmish to satisfying effect. But the black bow will make you feel like a black metal Legolas. Able to fire 4 arrows before the cooldown, obviously this weapon is perfect for taking out distant or airborne foes. But being able to fire the arrows rapidly makes it just as valuable up close. Dread Templar was at its absolute best when I was dashing throughout the levels and using all of the tools in my toolbox to win the day. It was the type of kinetic brutality I crave from this style of game. Oh, whoopsies. There's a good variety of enemies as well to keep the challenge fierce and energetic. Battles are characterized by troll-like tank enemies lobbing homing death orbs, disfigured mutants chasing you down, and the hooded necromancers that summon them. There's gun-toting zombies looking to tag you when you least expect it, crystal insects that will bite you when you're distracted, as well as floating flesh balloons that rain down blood missiles, to name a few. To be fair, the game probably leans on rusher types a hair too much, but at the same time, the pressure of these enemies chasing you down is what helps the combat feel so heart-pounding. And you may be surprised in the abilities of some of the variants down the road, like a rusher type that will flat out sidestep your attacks, and bugs that are resistant to explosive damage. Indeed, some of your weapons and tactics that dominated at first might not be as effective in later parts of the game, requiring the player to switch things up. Which brings us to one of my favorite aspects of the game, the upgrade system. Dread Templar's upgrade system is its X factor. Accessible through these spooky hooded statues, it's a simple, easy to understand system that provides a good deal of customization and depth. Basically, each weapon, as well as the Templar himself, has 3 slots for equipping upgrade runes, 2 slots for silver runes, and 1 slot for gold runes. And to unlock these slots requires collecting blood gems found throughout each level. Runes have to be collected in levels as well. Silver runes are straightforward buffs, consisting of increased attack power, bigger ammo counts, faster cooldowns, etc. Silver runes can also be stacked. So, say you equip the Templar with the level 3 health boost. You can also equip the level 2 health boost in the other slot for an additional effect. Silver runes are fine and dandy, but gold runes is where the awesomeness lies. Gold runes are essentially combat perks that can alter the mechanics of each of the weapons or fundamentally change them, as well as the Templar himself. So for instance, there's a gold rune that increases the damage of the pistols during bullet time. There's a gold rune that makes you immune to damage while dashing. There's a gold rune that increases the damage of arrows with successive hits, along with a rune that gives the arrows explosive tips. There's a rune that gives your katana javelin lightning damage, and there's a rune that eliminates the reloading with the SMGs, so you can weapon swap with them more effectively. Oh, the swap combos you get from these are delightful. One of my favorite runes makes it so when you shoot an enemy with the super shotgun and then immediately swap and shoot with the pump shotgun, it will cause a huge amount of damage. And another great one doubles the damage of the revolver against stunned or frozen enemies, which makes a launcher-revolver combo insanely effective. And all the ones I just described are the tip of the iceberg. There's a ton of these that can be discovered, providing players numerous options for a playstyle most comfortable to them or best for a particular combat scenario. But that's not all. No, the best of the gold runes are the ones that change the weapons to their stronger Inferno types. Most of the weapons have an Inferno type. One of the more recognizable ones is the dual Hell Screams that replace the dual pistols. Inferno weapons are a big boost in combat effectiveness compared to their original types, and in some cases grant the weapons unique abilities. However, they do come with a trade-off. For example, while the dual Hell Screams are more powerful, they shoot a lot slower than the normal pistols. A better example of this is the Hurricane, the Inferno variant of the SMGs. It's one of the most devastating weapons in the game, but it eats through ammo quickly and is better used when absolutely needed. Almost like a BFG type. But then again, if you equip the Hurricane with a couple silver runes that boost the total ammo count, then it's not as much of a problem. Ho-ho. Once again, what makes this system so impressive is the choice it provides to the player. And there's a lot of reward in getting your ass handed to you, tweaking a few runes, and then utterly demolishing in round 2. Something I adore too is that while you can find a good number of runes and blood gems out in the open, often near the upgrade statues themselves, majority of them can only be found by completing side areas and, more importantly, hunting down secrets. This is great for me because I really enjoy secret hunting, and the secrets in this game are flippin' great. You have your standard secrets that are hidden behind walls or nestled in some obscure corner of the map, which are a lot of fun to find. But the best secrets in this game require keen observation on the player's part and some puzzle solving to suss out. Secrets are not just for funsies, they're an integral aspect to this game. The more secrets you find, the stronger you will be. It's highly satisfying, and the cherry topper is that some of these secrets feature some epic references to past classics. Dread Templar is superb, an insanely fun, tightly made experience that pushes further than most retro-style first-person shooters, with its upgrade system, technical gunplay, and replay value. For the retro shooter fan, this is an absolute must-buy, but I also think those looking for a good, twitchy action game to sink their teeth into will find a lot of enjoyment here. All I have left to say is Dread Templar 2. When? But what are your thoughts on Dread Templar? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. If you dug the video, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and smack that bell. If you want to come say hi, my Discord is linked below, along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.